She was sinking fast, scales glinting like broken rubies beneath the water, wings torn and bleeding, while the orange dawn burned across a sky not meant for humans. An old beekeeper with trembling hands dove in after her, not knowing she was a runaway experiment worth millions, or that saving her would ignite a war across the stars. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The honey was not real honey, but Jonas Merritt loved it anyway. On Aurelia 6, even sweetness needed engineering. The floating hives drifted over his fields like slow planets, and the bees glimmered with bio-tuned stripes that flashed soft signals in the morning haze. Jonas, 64 and steady as the soil beneath him, checked a readout on his wrist. The day looked easy. Clear air, mild wind, nothing but the hum of work. Then a sound cut through the hush, thin at first, then sharp, a cry. Jonas turned. The irrigation canal ran bright beside his boundary wall, 30 feet wide, lined with smooth ceramic that held no grip at all. The surface broke, then broke again. The shape thrashed in the green water, going under, struggling up, going under again. He moved before he had time to be afraid. The jets in his suit kicked, and he skimmed the air, hitting the canal with a slap and a rush. Cold closed around him. His visor cleared the shimmer, and that was when he saw her. Scaled. Not fish scales, not armor. Something like living jade set into pale skin. Membranes stretched between long fingers, like the beginnings of wings, torn and dragging her down. Her eyes opened under the water, golden and frightened. He reached for her arm and felt the odd friction of scale against glove. She fought without meaning to. Panic makes poor partners. He tightened his grip, triggered the buoyancy surge, and hauled upward. They broke the surface in a shining spray. She coughed, pulled in a ragged breath, and clung to him with surprising strength. "Do not return me," she whispered when words would work. Her voice carried a second tone, soft and metallic, like a string faintly plucked. "Return you where?" Jonas asked, kicking toward the edge. They hit the slick ceramic. His suit anchors found purchase and hauled them onto dry ground. She curled tight, wing veils trembling. The air changed. 3 shadow shapes fell from the sky on quiet rotors, settling in the field dust. Matte gray hulls wore a logo Jonas knew from news feeds and price lists. Bioforge Syndicate. A man stepped down from the lead craft. Smooth suit, smooth smile, too many quiet upgrades to pass for untouched. His implant flickered the name Cade Voss. "Mr. Merritt," Voss said, voice calm and wider than his mouth. "You have something that belongs to us." The young woman flinched and pressed herself against Jonas's side. He felt the tremor go through her like a shiver in metal. "She asked me for help," Jonas said. He kept his tone level. Good beekeeping taught patience, even when hornets came calling. "It asked," Voss corrected gently, like a teacher. "Designation V13, labor class, our property, per contract and registry." The woman's chin lifted. "My name is Nara Vale," she said, voice thin but certain. Voss tilted his head. "Names are comforts, not titles." He gestured, and 2 guards raised narrow devices. Jonas had seen those in a report. Weapons tuned to hybrid pathways, built to stun without bruises, to leave no story on the skin. Jonas breathed once, steady and slow, and tapped his wrist. "Captain Marla Quinn," he said into his link. "This is Jonas. I claim sanctuary on agricultural land for a sentient being seeking aid. I would like that put in writing before anyone gets hurt." The speaker on his link crackled. "I hear you," Marla said. "Hold position, B-Man. I am 5 minutes out." Voss smiled, and the smile did not reach his eyes. "Mr. Merritt," he said softly, "you can spare yourself a long week if you hand our equipment back now." "She is not equipment," Jonas said. He moved half a step to shield Nara without making it a challenge. Rotors again, lower and louder. A different rhythm. The Peacekeeper skimmer cut across the field and braked hard, dust skirling around the hull. Captain Marla Quinn climbed out. She was taller than Jonas by a head, hair threaded with silver, eyes fitted with lenses that could read a heartbeat through fog. "Cade Voss," Marla said. "No greeting in it, only recognition. You know the code. Sanctuary request on private agri-hold means a pause, a hearing. You can wait in the air, or you can wait in town." "We have documents," Voss said. "And I have a badge," Marla replied, "and a recorder running. You touch that woman on this land, and I will make the code sing." Voss measured the field, the farmer, the officer, the bees drifting like small lanterns. He put a pleasant look back on his face. "Of course," he said, "we respect due process." He pointed at Nara without pointing. "We will be back with proper signatures." The crafts lifted. Wind scattered dry seed heads. Quiet returned in a fragile way. Nara sagged. Jonas crouched near her. "Name again?" he asked, a soft reset after danger. "Nara Vale," she said. "I am Jonas," he replied. "You are safe for now." Her eyes watered. Not tears exactly. A sheen moved over the gold like a protective film. "For now," she repeated, as if testing the size of those words. Marla came closer, took in the torn wing veils and the raw marks like burned circles. She did not touch. She only nodded once. "We will get you inside," she said. "We will start the paper and make the noise, and maybe that slows the machine." "Machines stop," Nara whispered, looking at the sky where the crafts had vanished. "People do not always stop them." "We will try anyway," Jonas said. "Try is how hives get built." He helped her stand. Her legs shook, but they obeyed. Together, they walked toward the farmhouse, 3 figures under a pale sun, followed by a slow plow. Inside, the kettle sang. Outside, somewhere just beyond sight, trouble gathered itself and smiled. And the hook of the day was set. A rescue, a name claimed, a law invoked, and a storm coming fast. Jonas's farmhouse was old prefab with soft corners, patched and patched again. He had laid extra reinforcement in the walls after raiders tested the latch one hard season. He had also added a porch because every good story deserved a place to sit and watch it become evening. Nara eased onto the couch with care, as if it might scold her for being heavy. Jonas fetched a medkit and looked to Marla. The captain gave a small nod. "Recording continues," she said. "Say your name for the file." "Nara Vale," she replied, voice steadier. "Hybrid class unknown to your registry. I was told I am Sky Series." She flinched at the term and then took a breath. "Worker, volcanic extraction. Designation at Bioforge was V13. "Thank you," Marla said, and her tone made it a human exchange, not an inventory. Jonas cleaned edges, wrapped gauze, and tried not to stare at the wing veils. They were beautiful in a way no profit sheet could carry. Each vein a thin line of light, each tear an ache. "What happened in the canal?" he asked. "I ran," Nara said simply. "I followed pipes and shadows. I thought water would hide me. Their drones do not like humidity." She watched the kettle list on its old hinge. "I burned my signal tag. It hurt. But hurt means I am still mine, and I needed that." Marla's mouth thinned. "Do they use collars?" "Yes," Nara said. "And the still hour, what is that?" Nara's voice did not change, but the air around her seemed to cool. "They dim you," she said. "You feel the room. You hear your own breath. You cannot move, cannot blink, cannot make a sound. You wait until they start you again." Jonas held her gaze. "Thank you for telling us." "I tell it so you know why I ran," Nara said. "If they ask, they will," Marla replied, "and I will ask as little as I can while still keeping you safe." Footsteps sounded on the porch. Jonas looked up, but Marla was already half-turned, palm near her sidearm. The door opened without knocking, which meant the person felt like they had earned it. A thin woman with a cane stepped inside. Her eyes found Nara first. And for a heartbeat, her face was grief and wonder at once. "Dr. Prasad," Marla said, lowering her hand. "I hoped you would come." "Helen, please," the woman replied. "We left titles in the old decade." She looked at Jonas. "May I sit?" At his nod, she took the chair opposite Nara and folded her hands on the cane head. "I helped write the first ethics for augmented lives," she said. "Bioforge filed them under not profitable. I left, I hid. I am tired of hiding." "No," Jonas agreed. "This is a family recipe in new soil." After, Marla stepped outside to call in case files and neutral observers. Helen stayed, her cane tapping patterns known only to old knees and patient halls. Nara's breathing slowed, and the tightness at the edges of her mouth relaxed. Jonas made tea. Calm rose like steam, and then, like a stone thrown into a pond, the hives changed. Bees poured from their doors in choppy waves, not the ordered rivers Jonas loved. His wrist chimed angry pheromone data. Someone had fogged the air with a scramble compound. Navigation would wobble. Losses would climb. "Bioforge," Nara said from the window, voice low. "They want you scared. They want me to feel like a cost." Jonas felt the reflex to run to the field, to throw his body at a cloud he could not hold. He pressed his palm flat on the table until the impulse passed. "Marla," he called, and the captain was already moving, calling neighbors, flagging a net alert. People came because people do. Farmers with salt on their boots, shopkeepers with sleeves rolled high, off-duty medics with kits, a pair of solar techs with clip drones. They formed a quiet perimeter with their own bodies, eyes up, hands steady, saying with their presence, "We see you." The panic in the hives eased under focused work. Jonas calibrated micro-emitters to counter the scramble. The bees, brave and small, found their doors again. In the porch light, Nara watched and leaned her head against a post like a weary bird. "I should not stay," she whispered when Jonas stood beside her. "They hit what you love to move me." "That is why you cannot run," Jonas said gently. "Bullies chase, but they do not like crowds and cameras and law. We make those. We keep you here." Nara nodded, not convinced, but held by the simple firmness of his voice. The night grew deep. Marla left 2 scanners on the roof and a deputy in the guest room chair. Helen dozed in the armchair with her cube dark in her lap. Nara slept in a small bed with a window full of field. Jonas sat awake with a mug growing cold in his hands, and the awareness that rest had a cost, but so did fear. When the first light came, soft as the inside of a shell, Nara stepped into the kitchen, with eyes glassy from dreams. "We make stories," Jonas said, pouring tea. "We tell them until they are law. If you could choose your story," he added after a beat, "what would you do first?" Nara looked at the pale line of the canal. "See rain that is real," she said, "not mist from the sheens. Hear birds that were not printed from a program, and fly. I would like to fly." "Good," Jonas said. "We will write that down where judges can read it." The kettle whistled. The day moved. Somewhere, Voss rehearsed a pleasant tone. On the farm, a farmer and a hybrid and two stubborn women built a circle out of simple things: soup, paper, witnesses, and will. And the story widened. Cade Voss returned at midday, like weather that did not check the forecast. 3 craft, 4 guards each, quiet confidence. He wore a suit the color of a memory you could not quite place, and a look that made any room feel rented. Marla waited with 2 deputies, a town advocate, and a camera mast pointed politely at the sky. Helen stood to one side with a slim case and a cane that said the past still had a vote. Jonas leaned at the porch rail, old wood under his hand, bees straying past his elbow like commas in a long sentence. Nara stood beside him, with new bandages and a spine that had learned the shape of dignity in a single night. "Captain Quinn," Voss said, "we brought documents. ... He held out a packet that looked official in all the ways paper can look important. "And I brought daylight," Marla said. "Let us share." She handed the packet to the town advocate, who took a slow breath and began to read aloud. The mast sent the sound to the crowd that had gathered at the edge of the field. Boilerplate. Asset this, contract that. Maintenance schedules explained like mercy. A clause about temporary suspension of awareness, stated in clean lines that did not carry the cold of it at all. "We also have logs," Marla said when the reading ended. She gestured to the mast. The screen flicked to filings pulled from a whistle archive. Problem-solving notes signed by V13. Map sketches improving workflow. Proposals to reduce heat stress. "This looks like thinking," Marla said. "This looks like creativity." "Trained response," Voss answered, almost bored. "Pattern fitting." "And design intent?" Helen asked, stepping forward. "Would you like the board minutes that promised partner status? Investor deck that said co-lead exploration with augmented citizens? Or the memo where your team stripped the rights page to optics only?" Voss's pleasant look tilted. "Dr. Prasad," he said, "I was told you were no longer available." "I get that a lot," Helen replied, and there was iron in it. The crowd murmured. Murmurs matter. But tell a bully the room is not theirs. Voss lifted a hand. One of his guards stepped back, touched a wrist pad, and then all the devices near the field chimed at once as a message forced its way through. Protocol hush engaged. A list scrolled, stark and ugly. 42 units. Awareness suspended. A countdown pulsed. Nara's nails bit the porch rail. "They will hold them in the still hour until I go back," she said softly. "Coercion," Marla said, voice flat with purpose. "That is a charge that sticks." Voss smiled thinly. "Release V13, he said, "and the others will resume at once." Marla's recorder glowed. "Thank you for the confession," she said. "Cade Voss, you are under arrest for violations of the Aurelia Charter, including coercion, unlawful suspension of awareness, and unlawful detention." She moved like a weather change, clean and quick. The deputies mirrored her. The guards hesitated just enough. Voss lunged. He was stronger than law should allow, but Nara was faster. Not a strike, not rage, only a precise step between Voss and Marla, hands out, palms open. Voss hit a wall that was not there and went down hard in dust and startled pride. A deputy's restraint band clicked. Marla exhaled once, only once, and nodded to Nara in thanks. "We need the court order now," Helen said, "and we need med teams." Within an hour, the field outside Jonas's farm was a command post. The judge on duty, a practical person named Santoro, who chewed pens and ignored pressure, signed an emergency release. Security from town split into teams. The facility doors opened under legal force and public eyes. Cameras in every hand made sure this part of the story could not be told in whispers later. The room where they found the 42 was bright and clean and wrong. Chairs like soft cages, crowns of wire gleaming, eyes open, bodies still, a quiet so loud it made people's shoulders rise. Slowly, Helen said, hands steady over a console. We bring them back gently. Too fast is harm. The crowns lifted one by one. Fingers twitched, chests shuddered. Someone sobbed, the sound of returning. A man with blue-toned scales blinked and looked at Nara. V13? He asked, and then, correcting himself with hope, Nara. I am here, she said, kneeling so her eyes were level with his. And you are here. We are not numbers. Marla moved through the room like a quiet storm, logging each unit, matching each face to no longer a number. The town medics worked with care. A deputy cried without hiding it. People learn from what a room permits. Outside, reporters landed like birds. Voss sat on a crate with his wrists bound, not smiling now. He looked smaller, which is what happens when a story stops serving you. By night, 42 people slept under warm blankets instead of bright lights. Marla filed more charges. Helen sent certified copies of every record to far jurisdictions. Jonas walked the rows with tea and soft jokes. Nara sang a little under her breath, a melody that moved like wings. The town, weary and wired, went home proud. Over the next weeks, hearings began. Words mattered again. Personhood, consent, labor without harm. Old terms grew new teeth. Contracts that had once looked iron grew brittle under light. Jonas's farm became a pause place. The guest room filled and refilled. The barn hosted meetings. Bees moved in soft arcs, less afraid now that the air stayed honest. Nara tried a brush one afternoon and made a painting of the canal as almost sky. It sold in town before the paint dried, which embarrassed her and fed her in equal measure. Jonas saw in her the complex miracle of someone becoming themselves after years of being someone's plan. And under all of it, a question kept beating like a second heart. Now that we have said no, what do we do next? The case on Aurelia 6 widened into others, as tides find new shores once they learn the trick of moving. A committee wrote rules with clearer edges, a council-stamped person, where a ledger had once said, part. There were appeals, and there were stumbles, because power resists softly at first, and then with volume. Still, the line kept inching the right way because enough hands held it. Nara stayed with Jonas that first season. She learned the language of bees, how a dance can say this way, how a microscent can calm panic, how a patient keeper looks more like a companion than a boss. With her keen sight, she caught early signs of mites and fungus. Hives thrived. Neighbors smiled when their tea tasted like sun. But static is not how a story like this breathes. Calls came from other worlds where contracts looked like cages. Messages spoke of quiet, collared minds and factories with windows that never opened. Nara read them with a hand on the sill. Jonas watched her reading and understood even before she asked. We could go, she said. We could help them write what we wrote here. Jonas looked at his hives, his porch, his own bones as they learned age. My bees like new flowers, he said, and I never learned to sit still very well. They left in a ship made for cargo and stubbornness. Jonas named it Amber Road because honey looks like maps if you hold it to the light. They learned station schedules and court doors, safe halls and unsafe smiles. They met good people in bad uniforms and bad people in good suits. Sometimes they won with law. Sometimes they won with a crowd. Sometimes they lost and rested and came back with better words. They did not do it alone. Marla sent quiet advice and wowed backup when she could. Helen's testimony built a spine for cases half a light year away. A scatter of former units became organizers with names and ideas. A network grew, not managed, not owned, only held like a net across a fall. Years worked on both of them, as years do, not cruelly but firm. Nara's wing veils thickened and learned a new strength that design memos had promised, but budgets had denied. One clear afternoon on a canyon world, Jonas watched her step to a cliff edge. She opened her arms and did not ask the air for permission. It gave itself anyway. She flew. She landed laughing, a sound that felt like bells and rain. Jonas laughed, because joy is a contagion with a short incubation time. "That looks like a plan we should repeat," he said. "Often," she agreed. They returned to Aurelia 6 more than once. Jonas sold half his land to a young pair who loved bees and patience. He kept a small strip for a house and old memories and new students. Nara painted the nights she could not sleep and sold the paintings to fund transit for strangers she had not yet met. They gave talks with titles like Work Without Cages and Making Law Feel Like a Hand, Not a Hammer. And because time is a circle with roads we do not see until we step on them, there came a winter when Jonas's heartbeat began to look like a yard of old fence, strong in purpose, bent in places. He knew it. Nara knew it. They did not name it every day. One morning, he did not rise with the sun. He had done that before, but this time the bees changed their song, and the house felt like a book slowly closing. Nara sat beside him, full of gratitude and ache. The town came with gentle feet. Marla stood at the doorway with damp eyes and no rank on her voice. Helen sent a message that said only, "Thank you for making the right kind of noise." Friends gathered, human and hybrid, some with scales, some with soft fur, some with nothing visible but a look that said, "I am here because you were." Nara spoke by the canal, where water kept on being water. She did not make it a statue day. She made it a promise day. "He did not save me and then send me a bill," she said. "He made space and then asked what I wished. That is all it takes to tilt a life." After the quiet rituals and the soft food and the stories repeated so they land, Nara walked back to the hives, unsure of where to put her hands. She stopped, breath catching. The frames inside the boxes shone with a new glint. The bees had woven thin threads through the honey, a bright fine shimmer like sunlight caught and braided. The keepers called it Sky Sweet when they bottled it later. No one could explain the change, and no one really tried. Word travels on routes we do not chart, along shipping lanes and gossip nets and down long station corridors. A phrase took hold. When a stranger reached for another to pull them from a hard place, someone would say, "Be someone's Jonas." When a person stood gently in the way of harm, someone else would grin and whisper, "Go full Nara." Nara hung her first canal painting in a small museum the town built around Jonas's house. School groups came and pressed their hands to glass and asked good questions. Guides pointed out the porch where fear met tea. Kids scribbled promises on sticky notes and left them like petals around a frame. Work did not end. Work never ends, not the good kind. Nara went on with the Amber Road, now with crews old and new, weaving help from station to station. She wrote letters to laws and poems to people. Sometimes she flew just to remember that up exists, and it is generous. When her own long story curved toward dusk many decades later, she asked to come home between stars. She stood by the canal, no longer afraid of water, and smiled at a world that had bent, not broken, and then learned to bend better. She left gifts and plans and a list of stubborn suggestions, and then at last she slept. In the seasons that followed, the bees kept making sky sweet. Scientists tested and shrugged. Grandmother said, "Taste and remember." Children learned the phrases, not as legend, but as everyday advice. Pull someone to the bank. Hold a room open with your body. Write the code so it cannot be erased. And across far ports and small kitchens and under quiet suns, stories told themselves a little differently because a farmer once chose to dive. And a young woman with sky in her skin once chose to live. Because kindness, when practiced, turns to culture. And culture, when tended, turns to future. And the future, when tasted on the tongue, is sweet.